morning, everybody. I'm a little late getting this posted. I hope to get it done earlier in the week. It's been a little nuts here. We're preparing for the 16 days of activism, and the university's kind of crazy. So I hope that you are enjoying the course so far, and also that you are starting to really have a solid grasp of gender and the ability to sort of question the things that perhaps once were taken for granted. And so in looking at the stuff that you were looking at this week, the film and the reading about ritual, and I really want, I'm hoping that you've been thinking about the ways in which things that have seemed natural have seemed like they are part of the natural order of things. In fact, sometimes get mystified by the sort of ritual indoctrination of roles and behaviors that then become, sort of the associated norm. But that really, what feminists have been saying underneath and what we're hoping to do in this course is to start questioning those things. And feminists have been asserting for a long time that actually these things are not necessarily so rooted in nature, and perhaps they're not as fixed as we once thought, not in terms of gender identity and gender as a performance and the continuum that exists on, but also right down to the biology, that there's some fluidity there and mutability, and that the boundaries are not so immutable and solid as we've sort of been made to think that they are, and taught that they are. And so some of you maybe have already watched Arlene's video from last semester. One of the things that she mentioned that I think is a really good example of both how cultural change can happen around these ideas, but also what the investment is in things that we've taken to be fixed and taken as where we've accepted the mystification and really bought into this idea that these things are rooted in nature, and how the ritual around them plays out tells us who we are and who other people are. So she mentions the on campus here that we have some gender inclusive or gender neutral or non-gendered, non-binary gendered bathrooms, and they are few and far between. However, the idea is that people identifying in any way that they choose can access those. There's no restriction. These bathrooms don't adhere to the gender binary. There's not a male bathroom or a female bathroom. It's just a bathroom for anyone to feel welcome to use. And so I think it is a really good example of how we can upset some of those taken for granted, mystified notions. However, the sort of flip side of that I think is really interesting, and particularly when we're talking about space and how space becomes ritually sort of grounded and also mystified as belonging to one or the other. These bathrooms, right? They create a really big problem, and have in lots of locations where they've been established, where people have felt that uncomfortable, right, with the inability to identify who is who, and sort of having this space that's unmarked, right? This, and so it's not definable. It's not boxable, right? That it's been demystified, and so it's just open. It's this neutral, open, ungrounded, and ungendered, degendered space, and it's created problems for people who don't feel, whose sense of security in the world is in some measure, and I think that's true for most of us, to greater or lesser degrees, dependent upon this gender binary, and having it grounded and fixed and solid and knowable. And so the bathrooms, I think, are a great example of how we ritually engage these notions and sort of accept the mystification of identities and ideals and behaviors and as being natural and rooted, and when that's upset, then things are unnatural and untangible, intangible, this very ungrounded sense that sort of destabilizes the world when gender isn't really firmly rooted. And in this case, we're talking not only about like an outward presentation and an identity, but also in terms of genitals, in a very real sense, right? Because we are also talking about bathrooms. So I think Darlene really hit on something great in that last video when she noted that these gender neutral bathrooms, right, are part of this visualizing of space and how we can know and engage the world that we're walking through all the time. But to upset that can sometimes upset the balance that will work really hard to kind of have that sense of equilibrium and standing on solid ground. And she also mentioned, that really these things are not as, separate as we are often sort of told that they are. We both have estrogen and testosterone, and there's some ebb and flow to how the biology works, right? And so while men aren't gestating and having babies just yet, the world that we live in now, where gender is concerned, where we have such a multiplicity of ways of being and identifying. We now have transgendered folks who, for example, might be identifying as male and now, but still has the capacity to gestate. I saw an article, and the reference was that he was chest feeding his babies. And so we've got this discourse afoot now that is very different from the one that's typically been operative, where things that have been mystified and taken as being rooted in nature and very solid aren't like that anymore. And so there are new ideas and new language and new discourse and new ways of being that really have challenged this binary notion of gender and sex and how it operates. And our rituals around that have served to re-entrench that. And now we're having to open up and examine what it might look like if they're not so static and not so fixed, because of course they aren't. And so as you watch the film and prepare for your next case study and do the reading, think about this and think about how the rituals that do happen all around us all the time that serve to re-entrench gender, how they do that, and what might it look like if we didn't take a binary gendered system of classification for granted, right? Which I think we're all sort of working to decenter gender now, because the world we live in has finally opened up to acknowledge that there is a multiplicity of ways of being. But think about it. Think about the things that you can notice after you do your reading in the world around you, where gendered rituals are concerned, and how this new knowledge impacts how you view those, right? Challenge what you've thought about those rituals and how gender has operated, and think about them in a bit of a different way. So I will be back next week to talk again about your case study. I hope you have a great weekend and enjoy the lovely weather that we're having, and I hope that this has helped enjoy the film and enjoy the reading, and I will see you early next week. I am making my way through your case studies. We'll be posting marks as I go, so keep your eyes open. But also, as per usual, if it seems that you need a little bit of extra time next week in handing your case study, and it's totally fine. I'm not super sticky about that stuff. So I'm posting as I go here all weekend long, so just keep your eyes open. Okay, have a great weekend, great day tomorrow, and I will talk to you soon.